My name is Mike Godeker. I'm the creator and founder of the social network Shaman and the Silver Crow Method. We're here today in the Silver Crow podcast with...
Hi, I'm Melanie Stewart, and I am with the Silver Crow Method podcast and the Silver Crow Apothecary.
Right, the Silver Crow Apothecary as well. Exactly. So if you guys don't know, the Silver Crow Apothecary is where we have our teas and certain assorted items that you can always purchase. I'd suggest that you take a look at our teas. We have 13 different sorts of those teas. Each one has an individual use to it. The teas are really good. We both drink the teas avidly. So many different versions of those. They
Which
taste
tea are
really
you
good.
drinking today?
I have a combination of Silver Crow blend and also Immunity tea.
Oh, cool. I am drinking chillax, and I was drinking previously Silver Crow
Yeah,
blend.
yeah,
Yeah.
and I have both of those in here.
So it sounds like you might have a little cold.
Yeah, I kind of have like the sniffles, so took a little bit more vitamin C. Actually bombarded myself with vitamin C, a little bit more zinc. And I'm
Good.
also taking the Immunity as well as Wake Me Up Inside this morning. So
Mm-hmm.
try to avoid coffee, using those to basically give me a pickup. And I'm using the Silver Crow blend itself with also the cinnamon and sage, which is really good, as well
Mm-hmm.
as the combination of Immunity to just make sure that my immune system has that extra boost that it needs to basically combat
Yeah.
this cold. Yeah,
Good job.
thanks.
Good job.
Yeah, someone taught me a lot of the stuff that I know, and yeah, I trust that advice.
Awesome. So, what are we talking about today?
You know, that's a good question. Today we're going to talk about hidden agreements, these things that run our lives, and how do we take our energy back from that. So there's a lot of different videos that I have in the past where I talk about agreements and cords. And I think today in the podcast it's important to start talking about what those things mean. So when I think about this, let me ask you something. Have you ever
Ask.
noticed, have you ever noticed those certain patterns in your life that repeat even when you try to change them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The same types of relationships, the same hesitation before stepping into something bigger, or that invisible resistance that we feel when we're about to grow.
Yeah.
So most people think it's more about discipline or confidence, but often it's something that goes much more deeper, and we're going to discuss that today. So many of the reactions that we have today, they are being guided by what we call agreements, some of which we've made years ago, sometimes decades ago.
Wow. Can we just hang on that for a second?
Sure.
Because a lot of times when we're about ready to expand, grow, do things, a lot of times we think it's just about, having discipline and having confidence. So before we really dig into those things, there's something else that's running the program in the background, and it's what you're talking about.
Exactly. So these agreements are basically beliefs that we have. We'll get into that a little bit later, but they're the beliefs that we have, and the chords are the associated energy with those agreements, with those situations, etc. So the agreements and the chords, they actually train our nervous system and our brain to do something a certain way. So, if we've experienced trauma or abuse or something in the past, those agreements form on those situations, and they're anchored with the emotion and that energy charge from that specific moment. And those agreements are the things that we take along. And when we notice, okay, well, this is more about discipline, the agreements are the beliefs that we build up based on what we experienced before in our culture, how we grew up from our parents, and all that
Mm-hmm.
other stuff in these different events. And the chords are the links to that energy that keeps us in place, that forces our nervous system to react a certain way. So for instance, if you're in an abusive relationship and you learn that love always equates to pain, anytime you start a new relationship, you're looking for those categories or those characteristics in the past of maybe one of your parents, and you're trying to see, okay, well, do I need to be silent and check what his or her mood is? Do I need to basically wait up and see if they're going to, leave me alone or abandon me? There's a lot of different things with that, and a lot of emotional charge and energy that's associated with that. So when we talk about the energetic body, these are the things that are really, really relevant for us, and they are actually one of the pivotal points of shamanic journey work, right? So some of these are about we get our soul parts back, But the more, but just as important are, why do we give our soul parts, our energy away in the first place? And more often than not, it's these agreements that are basically the things that are standing in our way. It's a very, very important concept, one of the most important concepts in shamanic journey work and healing, in my opinion.
Wow. So if you really think about it, everyone is operating and communicating and carrying on in their days from these agreements.
Right. Yeah, it's like the agreements, they basically teach our nervous system to accept those agreements as truth. They may not necessarily be the truth, but for that moment, the nervous system associates that with something that it pictured together. This is my truth of this, or this is my truth of that. So, when we sabotage ourselves and there's like a program running in the back of our heads, I have to act this way, or I have to do this, or I have to yell, or I have to shout, or I have to be aggressive, or I have to be this. A lot of times there are triggers and energy associated with events that we had in the past, and those are those agreements. So, and once that happens, something interesting forms around them, what many traditions call these cords, right? So these cords are the things that quietly keep feeding energy into those agreements. And those agreements, they keep on shaping our choices and the way we make our decisions.
Yeah. Wow. That's pretty profound, really heavy. It's like all the things, it's how we operate.
Yeah,
And it's just happening and running us. So it makes you
yeah.
wonder, like you think you're the master of your mind, but there's all this stuff subconsciously running your mind.
Yeah. And the thing about this is the reason why the Silver Crow method's usage of technology or a methodology, we combine these things together to reset the nervous system. And when I say reset the nervous system, it's a combination of doing these things, finding these agreements, detaching the cords, releasing that energy, and then putting new agreements in place that actually serve us better. And that's a process that we do with the shamanic journey work. So
Yes.
we basically teach our minds, our logic brain, to shut down, to go out of fight and flight modus. And when we're out of that mode, then we can basically get rid of those agreements and we can put new ones in that serve us better. Today we're going to explore how that happens. So how do we release these cords and how do we get rid of those agreements? And how simply becoming aware of it can start, giving us our energy back and our freedom back. So these agreements and cords, instead of them running the show, we take that energy back and we run the show. So there's another tie into this that I want to talk about. That's more of like the academic research stuff that I've done. I had a session today at one of the security conferences that I was at. And this is also a security topic because if you think about artificial intelligence and social media, if we're not careful, social media actually can program new agreements and cords in us when we're not careful.
Yeah. Wow.
And I think I'll do that for another podcast because I did that session today. I recorded it, so I might post it on YouTube later on. But that's where it really gets interesting. So the reason why we're talking about the agreements and the cords is because this is the basis of how, how we build our reality, how we make our decisions. And it's a very powerful tool that we can use to get our freedom back. Okay, so let's talk a little bit more about the agreements, right? So an agreement is something that we accept that is true about ourselves, others, or the world. So some agreements are conscious. An example of this is, I will always take care of others, or I need to work harder than everyone else to be valued, or I can't trust people. So when we think about this, these agreements, they come from certain situations in our life. We think it's conscious, but actually it's not. So many of the agreements, they're formed unconsciously, especially during emotional or formative moments in our life where we're younger and we start to take a look at the world around us and we learn about how we're supposed to act in the world. A child who experiences rejection might quietly have the agreement, I'm not enough. Someone who grows up around conflict might agree, it is safer to stay quiet.
Yeah.
Over time, these agreements become belief structures. And once the nervous system accepts them as truth, it begins organizing our behavior around them. what decisions we make, why we make them, how do we interpret signals from our partner or from others. This is very, very deep stuff.
Also, since that's running the program, I'm safe if I stay quiet. Let's just use that one. We're then looking for our brains then looking for the evidence of how you stayed safe while being quiet,
Right.
right? So if we change that and make that a new agreement, what would you say the new agreement would be in place of that?
So if we say, for instance, beforehand, it's safer to stay quiet, then a possibility of a new agreement can be, I respect my sovereignty. And when I need to say something, I have the right and I will say something.
I thought of a new tea name, sovereignty. We need to make a sovereignty.
Yeah, sovereignty.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Yeah.
What's in that? I'm gonna have to think on it.
So that'll have to be a blend that helps the nervous system relax, get out of fight and flight mode. So that's going to be something that gives us empowerment. It also helps us relax at the same time. So that's what that blend's going to be.
So exciting.
Yeah. We just created a new tea. See, everyone, everyone that listens to these podcasts, you're going to learn something. You're going to learn a lot of interesting things. So come on and click on the video and look at it, share it with other people. There's a lot of stuff that we talk about that is therapy, that is positive anchoring. There's a lot of ways that we can use these videos to really help people, like you and I, that have gone through life and tried to figure out, why the heck do I sabotage myself, or why do I react a certain way, Yeah. So when we get back,
so then the brain's going to look for moments where you created sovereignty instead of where you were safe being quiet.
Right. So that's the one. If we take another one, I am not enough. A positive agreement is, I am enough, I know my value, and I love myself. I am enough, I am valuable, and I love myself.
Yeah.
You take the energy out of that agreement, it's gone. It no longer rules your life. Now, these come in stages and in layers. So from my own experience, I've been a practitioner for more than 4 or 5 years, and that continuously keeps on going. So once you think that you've worked through different agreements and chords, they usually come in layers like an onion. So the deeper and more foundational they are, the more pre-work we have to do on those upper level agreements until we get to the really deep ones on the bottom. And every time we release these agreements, it's like you have that feeling that you're energized, that something's releasing, that blockage that you had before is finally released. And you take back your own sovereignty, you take back your own self-love, you take back what you choose to focus your energy on. You don't give other people the permission to take your energy away from you anymore. So, if someone doesn't love you for who you are, well, you love yourself, then it's maybe time to walk away. Or, maybe they're not the right person for you. If someone, for instance, I am enough. I love myself and I trust myself, and I've done the experience and the shadow work to know who I am and what my value is. And the next thing is in relationships. When I look for a relationship, I'm looking for an equal partnership where people accept me for who I am and I accept who they are. We don't feel threatened by each other. We love each other and we extend that to the others. We're not looking to them to do things for us necessarily from life. Of course, we trust each other, but when you come out of a relationship where you don't feel like you're enough, you don't want to get that dependency on someone in a negative way. Depending on people, it can be positive, but it depends on how far the dependency goes. So, for instance, another agreement can be, I need to depend on them to survive or to live. And I think a better agreement would be, I choose to trust and to depend on my partner because I love and trust them, and they choose to depend on me because they love and trust me. It is a mutual relationship.
Instead of codependency.
Exactly. And that's a completely different narrative. It's a partnership, and it's a give and take. Sometimes there are days when you're in a good mood, sometimes there are days when you're not in a good mood. You give each other the grace to accept those things, and you protect each other in positive ways. So and when we talk about these agreements and the belief structures that they create and the patterns in the nervous system, when we think about this, we have them not because they're true, but because they once helped us to adapt or survive. So when you think it's safer to be quiet Back then,
Hmm.
as that child in an abusive relationship because your parents were yelling and aggressive,
Yeah.
we had to think that in order to survive. And that's what the
Hmm.
human brain is meant to do. It helps us to survive. But what happens later on, when we're no longer in that situation, we have to
Hmm.
take that energy, that agreement, and that cord out so that we can finally live our own life and be independent from that fear or that negative energy.
Hmm.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah. So the nervous system is constantly trying to keep us safe,
Exactly.
whether that is running this old agreement that is taking us out of our sovereignty or not.
Right. And then also building a healthy relationship, just healthy relationships in general, but also in how we view love and how we view the exchange of love and what we accept and what we don't accept. Right?
Hmm.
Okay, so when we talk about these agreements, then the next thing is how exactly do they train the nervous system to do what it does? So the nervous system is always trying to keep us safe. That's its job. It
Yeah.
looks at, our reality, our environment, and
Hmm.
it's like, well, how do I keep this person, who I'm
Right.
protecting safe?
And I think you, in a different conversation we had off camera, we are talking about, you know, eating things that are bad for you because it's a comfort food, and that's how the nervous system felt safe
Yeah,
by eating comfort foods, although it's bad for you in the long run.
right. So, for instance, what could be part of that reason is if you were a child and you had that relationship with your parents, and there was something that happened and they wanted to treat you, they would take you to McDonald's or to Burger King or something else, and they'd give you like a burger, whatever kind of junk food it was that you wanted as a kid because we didn't know better. And you associate that junk food with comfort. Now they're showing
Hmm.
us love
And a
after they,
reward.
yeah, and a reward. And that the brain associates that with, oh, okay, so I feel loved if I eat this. If I eat
Hmm.
a cheeseburger, I am loved. If I eat
Hmm.
fries, I am loved. If I eat this, whatever it
Right.
is, then I feel safe, secure, and loved. And that's not the
Yeah.
truth. It's just how the anchor works in your brain.
Yeah. And I can tell you from my health coaching background and having gone through it myself, from switching from regular American standard diet to eating plant-based, it takes a while to unravel those things. And the body holds memory.
Oh,
So
yeah.
even detoxing out those things can make you start to crave them as well.
Yeah.
It takes a while. It really takes a while. And there's so many, like you said, so many layers to finding new things and new associations with good food. The good things that help your nervous system, like mangoes, papayas, apples, those are all good things for your nervous system that you should be having,
Yeah.
not, the junk food. So
Right.
it takes a
So,
while.
yeah, like the blueberry, the natural blueberries or the wild blueberries, and
Hmm.
also, apples, you said,
Hmm.
oranges,
Yeah.
that vitamin C, doing those
Bananas are
bananas. Oh, yeah.
phenomenal for the
Yeah.
nervous system.
Oh, yeah. So I run a lot and I do a lot of sports. So since I've been using the combination of that detox bowl with the wild blueberries and
Hmm.
also the banana and a little spirulina, I
The
think it was.
heavy spirulina, heavy metal
Spirulina,
detox smoothie. Yeah.
exactly. So I use that a lot and it actually does help quite a bit.
Yeah, that's a medical medium original recipe.
Oh, wow, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I've seen some videos from him. They're actually pretty interesting. I've looked through a
Hmm.
lot of things. He's got an interesting focus on how he says things, but a lot of the information that
Yeah.
I've seen, they were pretty cool. I like the way he talks. So yeah, I
Yeah.
definitely listen to a lot of those things, and I incorporate those things in my diet as well. So definitely an advantage to do that. So if
Yep.
anyone is here listening to that, check out the what was it, the natural medium,
It's Anthony William, the medical medium. I've been
medical
doing
medium, right?
his stuff for like 8 years now, and it has helped me move forward in my wellness tremendously.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean, there's certain foods that are there, power foods that help us. There's certain teas that help
Mhm.
us. That's why that whole concept, when we talk about
Yeah.
agreements, food is a big part of that. So yeah, that's definitely
Right.
it.
And we have a few of his original recipes in our tea offerings, like the radiation detox, the liver detox, and there's another one. It's leaving me right now. It'll come to me. But we do have a few of his recipes in
Hmm.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Um, and
I
using
drank that.
food as medicine is what it's all about. Food, plant medicine. Yeah.
Well, if you think about it, from the body perspective, this is like the fitness guy and me talking again. So everything that we eat, the calories that we consume, the type of nutrients that goes inside our body, they basically form our body's resistance to different things, and they also supply the body and the organs with a lot of the nutrients, or all the nutrients and the oxygen and everything else that we need. So the healthier we eat, the better our brain works, the better our body works. As we get
Absolutely.
older, when we move away from a lot of these fatty type foods and a lot of these things that have a lot of cholesterol, etc.,
Yeah.
you notice that your body starts becoming lighter. So when I'm on a
Hmm.
run, what I don't like doing is, once or twice a year, you'll probably get into that, oh, well, I maybe need some fries or something like this. And every time I do that once in a year, it's like that was a mistake. Because I notice this when I'm running, especially in the joints. So when you're running like 5, 10 Ks, maybe a half marathon, you start
Hmm.
to notice when you're eating the right foods because they make a big difference. Especially when you're running like 2, 3 hours in one go. The body will let you know if you're eating right or not, and it will let you know if it's missing something. So that's
Hmm.
where, when you're doing that type of athletic activity, that's when you start to notice these things. But anyway,
Right. Yeah,
let's
there's
get
so
back to,
many, yeah, there's
yeah,
so many agreements, old agreements tied to
right,
food for sure.
yeah. So let's get back to these agreements.
Let's do it.
Right. So when we have those strong emotional experiences that happen, the body remembers these things. It saves
Hmm.
that. Like you said, it's like a battery. The brain remembers it, it stores it in our memory, but our body remembers that too. So it builds a pattern of response. So is it flight? Is it fight? Is it freeze? Or is it appease?
A piece is one that hasn't really come into play. People usually think of flight, fright, or freeze, never of peace. And that's another good part, also known as fawning.
Yeah. Yeah. So if an agreement forms during that moment, the nervous system begins reinforcing it through that behavior. So, for example, if you have an agreement that says, I'm not safe speaking up, the nervous system may trigger the following responses: a tightness in your chest, hesitation, self doubt, or avoiding something.
Hmm.
And even if the situation today is completely different, you still have that operating system inside your brain with those trained behaviors. And that is the power of these agreements that no longer serve us. And that's why this specific piece, when we talk about a lot of shamanic healing, is important in a lot of foundational ways. And when we talk about this perspective, it's just so important what this actually does to us, and to gain that freedom, to gain and release that energy through, our energetic body and the way we react to certain things. It is huge. It's really
Hmm.
huge.
Hmm. Hmm.
So, what looks like a personality trait is actually a trained nervous system response linked to an agreement.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's so enlightening. And to have that perspective when you're communicating with people
Yeah.
and to know that they're operating from their old attachments and emotional programs,
Yeah. Yeah.
it really gives you so much grace
Right.
when dealing with someone else.
Yeah, because how you interpret things and how I interpret things are going to be based off of our experience. So if I come from an abusive household and my version of
Hmm.
this is love entails, that's going to be part of how I react.
Hmm.
So you may think, well, why is he overreacting, or why is he doing this, or why is he doing that? In reality, it's not my character trait at all. It's something that I learned, and I learned that in order to survive. And that is so
Yeah.
foundational. A lot of the things, the reason why this is important on so many levels is it's not your character trait. It actually stands in the way of who you truly are.
Hmm.
And that's something that is so important again too. A lot of times these programs that are running subconsciously, they are blocking us from being the people we really are. You could be a really loving person, but because you've experienced so much trauma in your life, I
Hmm.
see this with folks that I work with that have PTSD. They're
Hmm.
really loving people, but through these situations and trauma, that PTSD program runs through in a certain way, And you think that they're aggressive, but in reality, they're completely the opposite. But in order to get to that person, that true self, you have to get rid of that noise, all that energy that's blocked up and pent up in these different trauma experiences, to release the energy so they can finally be who they are meant to be.
Yes.
And the thing is, the longer that pattern repeats, the stronger it becomes.
Yes. And the more layers that it takes on.
Exactly. So in many healing traditions, the agreements, they form what we call energetic cords. So what's that? A cord is essentially a connection that keeps energy flowing between us and that belief, that agreement. A person, a situation, or an identity. So sometimes cords are healthy. They connect us to family, to love, and to community. But sometimes cords can be limiting agreements that keep us attached to an old emotional program. So what are the ways that we notice this? What do you think?
Through acting out towards people in a way that, accuses them of having, some kind of ill will towards you.
Yeah. Yeah. So it's like
Being triggered by someone.
exactly. You're triggered by someone, but you're triggered by something that you think someone is doing because of the
Right.
past agreement that you had.
Yeah.
So, for instance, if if you're in a relationship and people don't communicate with you, then you think, well, they're not communicating with me because they don't love me, or they're not communicating with me because something more important is happening in me, or there's things that are formed in that agreement because when people didn't talk to you when you were younger, you didn't feel safe because you didn't know how to assess the situation. What was their mood? And the less people talk, the less you can assess what their mood is. How are they doing? So why does this happen? If you're in an abusive, if you have an abusive parent and they lash out when they're aggressive, you learn very quickly to read their emotions, very, very quickly. And that's where you're looking for all these inputs. Are they yelling? Are they talking calmly? Are they looking at me? Are they focusing in on something else? These are things that your brain associates with, okay, in order for me to survive, I need to get out of their way, leave them alone, and not talk to them, and, just make sure they have their peace of mind, and I'll do whatever I can, and then I'm safe.
Yeah.
But if you have a partner that wants to talk to you, that needs that communication, which is most of us, then you won't communicate with them as often, and then the other partner will think, well, maybe they're just not interested. Maybe they just don't feel the same way I do. And those are when those different types of agreements, we start to process those things, and we get back to a more normal relationship where communication flows freely between both parties, right?
Yeah. Amazing.
Yeah, so for instance, you notice this when the same relationship pattern repeats over and over again. Why do I fall in love with all the people that are bad for me? Or why do I accept these things from someone when I usually don't accept it from someone that I'm not in a relationship in? Or why do I accept the disrespect, or that they don't pay attention to me, or don't tell me that I look good, or all these different things when someone else does, when I expect someone else to say that to me? And these are the things that you start to accept because it's been going on for years. And somewhere there's an agreement in there that says, well, I don't need that because I love myself. Well, yeah, that's true. But, isn't it nicer to have someone to say, they like you, you look nice, I liked what you did today, I liked the food that you made, it tasted really good. All these different types of things, they're important to make sure that we respect others and what they do for us. And that respect, it's important because if you're with someone, you want to love them, protect them, but also respect and see what they really do. And that's an example. So the same fear shows up in new situations too. So if you have an old way of living, that fear shows up in new situations, even though it may not even be valid, right? And you come to wrong conclusions.
Yeah.
Or miscommunication. And then, success appears, and then something pulls you back, that self-sabotage that runs in another program, right?
Interesting.
So that cord keeps on feeding that agreement, and the agreement keeps on triggering the nervous system. It's an endless loop.
Wow.
And over time, like we think, that loop can quietly drain energy and reduce our sense of choice.
Yeah. Wow. It's amazing how all of these things are running our program.
Yeah. But we know this for now, right? Because everybody's listening to this podcast, and we're talking about some really deep stuff. So we talked about agreements and we talked about cords. Let's talk about blocks in life. So, what do you think with the topic of blocks?
The topics of block. Um, I think about, not being able to actually see the things that are happening. Like the chords that are happening, the agreements that are happening, that's a complete block. Not being able to reach the next stage in whatever kind of life achievement that you're doing. Um, Not being able to connect with somebody, there's just feels like there's a block. I mean, blocks are so vast, like perceiving somebody a certain way
Yeah,
and maybe it's not that thing,
right,
just not being able to see things, past a certain place
right.
or move
So,
past. Yeah,
right, exactly what you said. So, what you basically said was these agreements and these cords, when they're in place long enough, they are blocking us from developing a certain way or interpreting things a certain way. Only, like you said, we don't see that because these are things that are happening in the background. So, if you're a shamanic practitioner and you've learned these things because you want to find out what's broken in me and how can I fix it. So,
hmm
once you start going through these things and you start looking at the agreements, it's a mixture between shamanic healing and also psychology because you learn how the
for
brain
sure.
works. And when you learn how the brain works, you're like, okay, so that's why I did that. So that's why I did self-sabotage. So that's why I reacted that way when something like this happened. And you go through these journeys and you release
hmm
that energy and you start having these eureka moments. I've had them all the time.
Yeah.
I still have
Yeah.
them.
Yeah, every day. And I think it's so important when, like, we all want to move forward. Most of us, almost everybody, wants to move forward in life, wants to expand, want to elevate. We want to attract, manifest these things into our lives and bring them into alignment with our desires, right?
Right,
But we can't do that from the operating system that we are aligned with right now. And
right,
that's why it's so important to release these cords
right.
and to dive into what these agreements are that we've made and to create new agreements because we can't get to where we want to go from where we are operating from right now.
Yeah.
Right? It's like was it Einstein said you can't solve a problem with the mindset that you currently have, or what is the quote?
I don't remember quite
It's
quite that.
something like that. You can't solve a problem with, I don't know, like with the same frame of mind that you're
Yeah.
in. You have to change the way you're thinking.
Yeah, there was different quotes like that. I think one of them is the only way that I've achieved the things is because I've been standing on the shoulders of giants. So when we come to create something, a new technology, or come to a conclusion, a lot of that is the mental space that we're in, and we need to free up our perspective so that we can think outside of the box. When we have programs running the show and we don't have our true freedom of our brain and our functions, and we're not aware of what it's doing to us, then it will block us from being creative. It will block us from stepping into a leadership role, or it will
hmm
cause burnout despite trying to do everything right.
Yeah.
Burnout. So,
I know about burnout.
so do I. So do I. I've been
Yeah.
down that road too. And about 82 to 85, actually 82 to 86% of all adults have suffered at least one bout of burnout. More than 69 to 72% have had more than one. Those are the numbers.
That's a lot. And
Yeah.
people, we just keep going, just we walk it off,
Mm.
right? We just dust ourselves off and keep going, because of the way society is telling us that we have to keep moving.
Yeah.
And
And that's not
we
true.
just
I mean, society telling us that you have to keep on moving and just not recognize that you're suffering burnout and that you need to pay attention to your body. And in order for us to do the things and perform the way we should and be happy, it's our perfect right to take care of our body and our minds and our brains. I mean, it's a human right, right?
So I would also say that's part of the agreements
Right.
that we see online, right? Like on social media, right? All of the messaging of, being a high performer and you keep going and, you know, the hustle
Well,
and just,
yeah, you're right. Social
yeah.
media is even more dangerous because social media can reprogram, it can form new agreements. and it forms new
Right.
chords, right? So
Yeah.
you're trained that you're always in a sense of urgency. If I don't respond to my feed,
Mm-hmm.
if I don't do this action, if I don't do that action, then I won't go up in my scoring. If I don't do that, then no one's going to see me. So you're
Yeah.
actually, it
Yeah.
forces new agreements on you. And that's why if you, especially if you use digital media, this type of work is extremely important. That's what I do with a lot of corporations. We do these nervous system resets. And this is part of the reason why. You know, that the
Yeah.
AI algorithm, the artificial intelligence algorithm on social
Mm-hmm.
media, actually forms agreements and chords in a negative way.
Mm-hmm.
So well, that's another discussion for another day. So anyway,
Okay.
until we identify the agreement, the nervous system keeps running the same pattern. That's the point. So now the question is, what do we do about this, right? So when we reclaim energy, we have a choice. So the powerful thing is this. Once an agreement becomes visible, it can start to change. So when we see the agreement, we see the chords connected to it, and we see the nervous system pattern that this chord and agreement created. Pretty powerful stuff. When we
Very
see that,
powerful.
we can retrain the system. So this is our vulnerability management, patch management system. Instead of for computers, it's for the human brain. This is awesome. So when we realize this and see these things, we can reprogram it. We can put that patch in and then, Bob's your uncle. We're ready to go.
All right.
Yeah. Yeah, so we retrain that system. So this doesn't mean forcing ourselves through resistance. That doesn't work. It means
Mm-hmm.
working with awareness, with energy, with intention to shift that original agreement away from a negative to a positive. And when that happens, something interesting occurs. So the energy that was tied up maintaining that pattern begins to return back to its normal state.
Yeah.
And people experience clarity,
Mm-hmm.
relief or release,
Yeah.
creativity, new choices that appear to us, not because we forced the change, but because the block no longer needs to exist. It doesn't take that energy anymore.
Mm.
Isn't that awesome?
Absolutely. Wow. So just think about all the energy that we're expending throughout the day on
Yeah,
all of these agreements that are running in the background that's
yeah.
sucking our energy. That's
Oh, yeah.
huge.
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Yeah. So then let's close this with, the Silver Crow methodology and the Silver Crow story. So this one's called The Crow and the Forest Path. So imagine you're walking through a forest path you've traveled many times before. Over the years, the trail becomes clear. The ground is worn down. Your body knows exactly where to step.
Mm.
So now imagine realizing the path doesn't lead to where you want anymore, but your body keeps on walking it automatically.
Mhm.
Not because you choose it, but because it's the path that was practiced over time,
Mhm.
over and over again. It's what you were used to. High above the forest, a crow watches. The crow sees all paths, the old ones, the hidden ones, the ones that lead to somewhere new.
Mm.
Sometimes the crow does something simple. It lands beside you and reminds you that you are not trapped on the path. The agreements we've talked about today are a lot like those forest paths. They were created for a reason, but if we never step back and see them, the nervous system keeps walking them automatically. The good news is, when you see the path, you can choose another one. When that happens, the cords holding you to the old trail begin to loosen.
Mm.
Energy comes back. Choice comes back.
Mm-hmm.
Possibility comes back.
Mm. Yeah.
And the good thing
That's
is,
huge.
the good thing is to close off as this is exactly what we'll work on and explore in our upcoming Silver Crow Method virtual gathering on the 28th of March.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Yeah, so we're going to identify those agreements connected to blocks in your life. We're going to
Mm-hmm.
recognize the cords attached to them. And we're going to do a guided journey to process to begin shifting those agreements to something positive. So, if you've worked with us before, this is a chance to go deeper into agreements work. And if this is new to you, It's a powerful way to start understanding how your nervous system beliefs and energy patterns interact.
Yeah. If something in your life feels stuck or repeating, there's often an agreement underneath it.
Yeah,
Sometimes all it takes is seeing the path before you clearly and to begin to change it.
right. And we both hope that you'll join us and step into a new path of energy, choice, and freedom. This
Yes.
is exactly why the Silver Crow method has started and why we do a lot of things with the Silver Crow Apothecary to give
Mm-hmm.
you a closed system to help you and your nervous system and your body heal itself.
Yes. So on the 28th, people can join us in person
Hmm.
in Fairhaven, New Jersey,
Yeah,
or they can join in Zoom meeting.
right. So if you're a part of the community on Facebook and part of our group, you'll get this information automatically. If you're not in those groups, I strongly suggest you join the groups. So just give us a heads up. You can send me an email or Melanie at Mike or Melanie at the silvercrowmethod.com. So Mike at silvercrowmethod.com or Melanie at silvercrowmethod.com.
All right. I think on that note, it's a wrap.
It's a wrap. So I'm going to stop.
Yes. All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.